coaches. I am so glad you're here. You have made it to the Simply Coaching Summit Day 3. And this session is Kickstart Your Coaching, How to Introduce Yourself to Faculty. I'm Allison Peterson, and I have been thinking about you. I am so glad we're here and ready to get started. I have been an instructional coach for 7 years, and I help independent schools start instructional coaching programs. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is that teachers don't really know what coaching is. And so if we can introduce ourselves well and introduce the idea of what coaching is well, then we can really help them see how coaching can help. So as I've been thinking about you, I've been thinking you might be a new coach. You might have just gotten a new job at a new school as a coach. And so you're thinking, I need to go in and introduce myself to the faculty so that they can know who I am and what I do. And you need to get to know them more. You could be a coach who is in an environment that has just adopted coaching. So maybe previously you were a classroom teacher and you've come out and you're transitioning to a coaching role, but at the same school. So you're wondering how you reintroduce yourself to the faculty now, this time as a coach. Or maybe you've been coaching a year or 2 years and you're feeling like, if I could just get up in front of faculty and explain to them what coaching is, then they would understand what it is that I really do, what I'm supposed to be doing. Maybe they'd stop asking me to keep doing all the things that are not in my job description. Or you could be like me and you could be a veteran coach who's been coaching for all of these years, but you want to think about some new ways to introduce what coaching is to faculty. I use a presentation like this, I usually tweak it every year, for introducing coaching to faculty at the beginning of every year. It's such an intentional way to make sure that you introduce yourself and your role and how you can help people. So I cannot wait to share with you some of the tips and tricks that I have for getting started, and we will go to the slides. So I'm going to share with you those slides, and then I'll walk you through it all. Let's go. All right, we're ready to get started with Kickstart Your Coaching, How to Introduce Yourself to Faculty here at the Simply Coaching Summit. So you've got to start by going and downloading the session guide. You're going to get step-by-step walk through as I do the presentation. You can have it in front of you. Plus, it includes at the end a copy of the worksheet and exit ticket that you'll use during the presentation to get teachers thinking about coaching. So go grab that now before we get going. All right, we're going to get started with 3 keys to a Kickstart presentation. These are the 3 things we're going to focus on for this presentation that we're talking about today. And the first one is you've got to know your audience. You've got to know the teachers in the room and who you're talking to. Then we've got to create an experience that's going to help teachers experience coaching and understand what it is. Then you're going to have to collect exit data so that you can follow up with teachers. And by the end of this session and the end of the presentation you give to teachers, you're going to have a list of teachers who you are going to be able to follow up with and get started to kickstart your coaching. It's going to be great. So key number 1 is know your audience. And that seems simple. Of course, you know your audience. It's a room full of teachers. But what we're really trying to do is narrow down your audience so that you know that within that larger group of teachers, which group of teachers are you really trying to hook, line, and sinker and get them to understand what coaching is so that you can follow up with them. And that is a specific subgroup of the teachers in the room. So let's talk about these teachers in the room. The whole room. I love this dog and his cute little face. Huh? What? The teachers in the room, when you say, hi, I'm the new instructional coach, they are probably going to make this face at you. Unless this school that you're at really has a well-established instructional coaching program, many teachers, most teachers really don't understand what instructional coaching is and how it can support them. So they just kind of give you the shrug. And they say, well, what is that? What I find is that misconceptions are everywhere around instructional coaching. And there are 4 common ones that I run into the most. And it's important for you to know these misconceptions and make sure that your presentation is working to combat them. One is that coaching is new. Often now we've got some districts who have embraced coaching, but especially in independent schools, instructional coaching is not very common. So maybe the teachers that you're working with don't even know what coaching is because it's such a new thing. It also gets very commonly confused with other support roles or assistant principals or student support roles, and those are not what coaching is. And so people assume that this role they previously know is what instructional coaching is. Another thing that's a common misconception is that coaching somehow gets lumped in and associated with evaluation. And that's something that you're going to have to combat pretty hard, because it's probably the misconception that's most rampant, is that instructional coaching is all about evaluating teachers, which is not true. And especially if you can be sure that you're not an evaluator at your school. And then coaching just comes with a little bit of a negative connotation that doesn't seem to be justified, but sometimes this idea of life coaching or health coaching has influenced this idea of negativity, and the association with evaluation is always there. So as you're thinking about your presentation, you've got to think about these misconceptions and how to combat them. So one of the things you can do to combat these misconceptions is figure out what they are at your school or in your district, so that you can get a good idea of the real issues that teachers might be faced with. So if you can take a teacher to coffee, maybe virtual coffee since social distancing, but see if you can figure out a couple of teachers so that you can get to know them this summer, so that before you stand up in front of the whole faculty, you've had a few one-on-one conversations, asking them questions about, what do you feel like coaching is perceived as at the school? What's happened in the past that might have skewed the view of coaching? And get more information. Same conversation can happen when you meet with your principal. When you meet with your principal, you can talk to her about the coaching role, what's happened in the past. If this is a whole new position at your school and there's never been coaching before, then there's a lot of work that you need to do with your principal to help establish that idea of what is a coach and what does she do. So while you're there meeting with your principal and talking about these important things, be sure to ask her for time on the schedule so that you can present to the faculty. Ask for 30 minutes if you can get it. And if you can't, ask for 15, and that'll be enough. 15 to 30 minutes is what you want to ask for, and you want to request for your presentation to be at the end of the meeting so that you can close it out with your exit ticket. So when you have that opportunity to meet with your principal and go in depth with her, make sure you speak up. Don't be thinking, though, that she should be the one to introduce you. You have to be the one to introduce yourself, because you want to separate yourself from your principal slightly, in that you are not an evaluator, and you want to be able to introduce yourself separate from the principal so that she can remain the evaluator and you can stay in your lane as an instructional coach. So let's get back to that audience we were talking about. We're looking for the subset of the larger group of faculty that we really want to hit a home run with for this presentation. And that subgroup is the runners. Ron Clark, in his book, Move Your Bus, names these teachers the runners. They're the ones who are going to be the hardest workers in your environment. They're always going above and beyond. They're always doing everything that's asked of them. They always want to do more. They're always seeking professional growth. There is a small group of teachers among that large group, and that's the group that we're going to focus on. You've probably seen this before, this adoption cycle, especially if maybe you're in technology coaching, but it works really well to think about this group that you're going to aim your presentation at in this session. So if you look on the left, you see that you've got the innovators and the early adopters. And what happens with the adoption cycle is you always have a small subgroup of people who are willing to jump in right away, despite the fact that they don't know much about this yet. Those are your early adopters and your innovators. They see the vision, they catch the vision, and they're ready to jump on board. Well, it's roughly about 20%. So you usually have that top 20% is the ones who are going to engage right away. The others are going to sit back and wait and hear a little bit more before they're willing to commit. So you've got your early and late majority, and then you have your laggards, sometimes known as the skeptics, who are really going to wait and see how all this goes. You're really looking for in this presentation, you're looking for those early adopters, because what they are is they're the domino piece that's going to fall, that will help bring all of the other teachers into the idea of coaching. So you need to have some who are ready to commit early, who are ready to get started. Even if it's just one or two teachers, you're going to make a great impact and wave with them, because once you get started with those teachers, they're going to tell other teachers and the dominoes are going to start to fall. And the pragmatists who are in the middle, they're usually going to say, I'm too busy, it's not very practical to do that. But they're going to start to get on board when they hear that other teachers are talking about how great coaching is. And eventually those skeptics will come around if you keep working on it. But the adoption cycle really lets us focus on the top 20% and know that we can actually make a really big impact with that top 20%. So let's get to key number 2 for this presentation, which is create an experience. You want to create an experience where teachers will understand what coaching is better when they leave. And that is going to require them to engage with some kind of coaching activity that's going to help them envision it and see it a little bit better. So what we know to be true is that experience changes beliefs. You can tell people all day long that something is true, but when they finally try it, they finally get on board and have that aha moment. Think about maybe a movie that someone told you about that you were like, whatever, but you went to see it and you were like, you're right, it was amazing. These different experiences where you've said, someone has told you it's great, but until you felt it yourself, then you didn't really know how great it was going to be. So with that truth in mind, we want to try and create an experience for teachers around what coaching looks like. You really want this experience that you're creating for them to answer this core question: how will coaching help me? The truth is that we're always thinking about what's in it for me. And you've got to answer that question for teachers here with an experience to help them see that, maybe this would be something that would be valuable. So you're trying to create something that's going to trigger that thought process. And that can be easier than you think. So here's the format of the presentation. You can think about it in 4 parts. And starting with, you're going to introduce yourself. You're going to talk about what is coaching. You're going to try and facilitate that activity that's going to engage teachers. And then you're going to use an exit ticket. And I've put the times on here for about 30 minutes, but if you end up with less time, you can still do this presentation rather quickly. It just kind of shortens the facilitation time, and you can easily shorten your introduction as well. So you can make it work, even if it's only a 15-minute presentation. So let's start with part 1 of the presentation, which is you introducing yourself. You want to keep this part short and sweet, and you actually want to keep it personal. You want to really start by sharing a little bit of who you are with the faculty. And this is so important, because the number one thing that makes instructional coaching work is not your instructional expertise. It's the relationships that you build. And from the very first minute, you want to introduce yourself in a way that's going to make you personable and approachable and make connections with people right away. And usually that's by telling a story, maybe a funny story about your family or your dog, or something that can be really a great way to represent who you are. And you really start to break down walls and build personal relationships just right then and there by telling a personal story. So after you share that personal story, you want to go into the next part of your introduction, which is share your why. You want to talk about not so much your resume, but about how you are a teacher too, and your experience in the classroom and what you learned. But then also, why coaching? Why do you believe in this work? Why do you believe in supporting teachers? There's a very important heart tug happening here that teachers can connect with you when you tell them that you're just like them. And you want to make sure that you have the opportunity to share with them that you want to support and help them. And it's your why. So take a minute here, rather than going through your resume and telling them all the things that you've experienced or been trained in or have expertise in. Tell them why. Why do you care about this work? Why do you care about them? Why do you believe in the work that they're doing? Why do you believe in the students who are in the desks? And get a little passionate and share your passion and your why behind the work. And that will open hearts and minds to you right away. Again, in that opportunity for relationship building and connection building that you're going to be able to do when you start sharing the why behind the work that you want to do here this year. You also want to share your approach to coaching and that idea of a partnership that you want to create between you and teachers. And you want to help level the playing field so that you can come across as a peer who is going to be working with them, not an administrator who's going to be working over them. So you may be familiar with Jim Knight's partnership principles. He has 7 partnership principles that he writes about in his book, Instructional Coaching. But he also has done a video series where he talks through the 7 principles. And it's an amazing little short video series on YouTube. So there's a link in the session guide to that video series that would be a great one for you to watch. But try to talk about how you want to establish a partnership with them. And that's going to be a great place for you guys to get to work together. So for the next part of the presentation, you're going to transition to the question, what is coaching? And you're going to try and start to answer it. So you're going to try to talk a little bit about this whole idea of instructional coaching. What is it and what do you do? So I like to use a definition of coaching that's really approachable. So this is the one that I use, and you can try it if you like it. And it's that a coaching is a partnership between a coach and a teacher. And then it says, we work together to foster our professional growth and improve student learning. And you'll notice that it says foster our professional growth, because I want to create a relationship where I'm learning and you're learning and we're learning together. And so that's something that you can communicate when you share this definition, is this idea of I'm learning from you and you're learning from me. And it's a partnership. So this can help you to get that definition across. Another way that you can help explain what coaching is to use some of the research that's out there. Now, there's a lot of research out there and that you can use, and any kind of small snippet would be a good thing to add to your presentation. One of the things that I really like is this TED Talk by Atul Gawande. He talks about how I'm really interested in how I get better. And what he does is he talks through this presentation is really gets to the bottom of what helps you get better. And the answer is coaching. And he just discovers that, quote unquote, everybody needs a coach. And he also has a New Yorker article that goes into depth about his research. So this video is too long to show during the meeting, but it would be a great one to reference and then maybe send afterwards, because you know who would really eat that up is your top 20% runners. They'd be really interested in this video. So I would say watch it yourself, see if it inspires you, see if you want to use pieces of it for your presentation. It usually is one that is really kind of very interesting. And in this section of the presentation, you'll also start talking about your role. You can get a little more concrete about some of the things you will be doing, some of the specific tasks you'll be following up with. You'll just be talking about things that are going to help them envision what coaching looks like and what it looks like to work with you. If you can talk about your role and add those types of details about ways that you can support, things that you can do together, maybe you can plan together, maybe you can try a new instructional strategy. So share some of those things, but also be careful right here to avoid saying things like, I'm going to come to your classroom and observe you, just because those red flags will go up really quickly in the room and arms will cross, and you may lose them with some of that terminology that is associated with evaluation. So just be careful with trying not to go too close to evaluation, but talk to them a little bit more about what coaching is actually like. And that will lead you right into the activity that we're going to do, because they're about to experience what coaching is actually like. So you're going to facilitate the activity, and the idea of facilitating the activity is to make sure that you're going to get them collaborating, working together, thinking together, so that they can start to experience what it's like to do coaching. The other thing is that in this scenario that we're about to look at, you actually are going to make them the coaches. So you can kind of talk to them about how coaching is really just a process of asking questions and helping the other person think even deeper with more questions. And so anybody can really be a coach if they're just going to think about the mindset of asking more questions and digging a little bit deeper into somebody's thinking. So it really helps everybody to feel like, okay, well, I can do this too. And we can kind of create a culture of coaching in your school, which would be amazing. So the activity that I want to share with you is just a think, pair, share. It's super simple. And in the session guide, you have an actual sheet that you can use with teachers during the presentation, and you can have them complete this as a part of the activity. So if you're running short on time, you can actually have them answer these questions as they come in the room for the meeting. So let's say you only have 15 minutes, you can hand them this sheet at the beginning of the meeting, and they can be filling it out while they're listening to some other pieces of the meeting. And then when your activity starts, you can just tell them to pull out the piece of paper that they answered and get going. So the think, pair, share, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but it's basically when they write down answers to something, partner up with each other. And then sometimes it's a share out to the whole group, but we're going to use it as just like a share to your partner activity. So they're going to answer 3 questions. And what these are going to do is these are going to be kind of like incognito coaching questions to get them thinking. And then they're going to interview each other and listen to each other's answers. It's really going to happen pretty organically because it's going to create a great conversation between the 2 teachers who partner up. Or let's say you maybe have some that have a group of 3. So the questions are, what is something that you want to do differently as you start the new school year? What's the real challenge to making that happen? And what is one way you've considered solving that problem? So if teachers come with those 3 questions answered and then partner up to talk through it, guess what? They just had a coaching conversation, and they're probably pretty energized and excited about trying that new thing that they said they wanted to do. So in this activity, you want to make sure that you get them up and moving, of course, because adults need to move too. If you have a willing teacher, maybe one of the ones you met with for coffee, you can have her model that with you, that conversation kind of quickly at the very beginning, just so that everybody gets the idea of how you're going to have one person asking the questions, the other person answering, and then they switch. The partnership approach recreates the feel of coaching, right? And then they're sharing each other's thinking and they're hearing each other's thinking. So they're actually going to inspire each other in exciting ways. Another thing is that no matter what the time says, make sure you end this activity while the momentum and engagement is high. So one of the things you don't want to do with this type of presentation is let them get to the point where they're totally done talking and then they start talking about something else. So you want to make sure that you try to keep them on topic by cutting them short. So you might set a timer for maybe the first person to share, and then the timer goes off and they have to switch something there. Now they're going to groan at you because they're going to say, well, I didn't finish, but that's the idea. You want them to say to you, I didn't finish, because it means you stopped them at just the right time. That momentum is actually the thing that keeps the energy in the room. So try not to try actually to cut them off. So just make sure you keep an eye on that momentum and end everything a little earlier than they really want you to. Another thing is that the small group discussion is enough for this activity. You don't need to try and bring everybody back together and have them share out to the whole group what they learned. I know that's kind of tempting sometimes, but you want to go straight from the end of the conversation to calling everybody back together and then telling them to work on their exit ticket, which will be on the back side of the worksheet. The exit ticket should take no more than 3 minutes. That seems actually long for an exit ticket to me because the questions are really quick. So this exit data that we're going to collect is really important because it's going to be the key to you following up and really truly kickstarting your coaching, because now you're going to have a list of teachers who are ready to be coached, who want to talk to you some more, and you've built so much energy in the room after this activity. So on that exit ticket are just 2 questions. On the front side is their thinking. You're going to get that as a part of the exit ticket because they're going to give you the whole page. And on the back, they're just going to answer 2 questions. Number 1, on a scale of 1 to 5, how interested are you in working with a coach? Now, note that it doesn't say how interested are you in working with me, okay? You're really not trying to make it about you. You're just asking, are you interested in working with a coach? And that scale of 1 to 5 is right there on the sheet for them to circle. Super easy. Question number 2 is a little bit of a trick because it's actually straight out of Michael Bungay Stanier's book, The Coaching Habit, where he talks about the importance of a reflection question, because what it does is it actually creates an assumption around the fact that what you just went through was useful. If the question is, what was most useful for you today? You have to assume that something was useful. So they have to write down what they thought was useful. Basically, the question is, what's your takeaway from today? And that really could be great information for you on an exit ticket as you're trying to follow up with teachers as well. So that gets you the information that you need. Another thing you need to think about is this is an amazing opportunity to build relationships. This exit ticket should actually be something that's out the door. Go stand at the doorway and wait for them to hand you the pages and chat with them as they walk out. You really want to have an opportunity to build relationships, and this is a great one. You will have those runners standing there in front of you, talking to you as everyone else is walking by, and you'll know right away, hey, these are the ones I need to follow up with. So use this as an opportunity to build relationships at the end of the meeting as well. That's why it's a great idea for you to ask to have the end of the meeting for this presentation, because you do also get that high momentum and excitement, and then maybe some follow-up conversations right there and then. So once you've got all that exit data, you've got to sort it out, you've got to follow up, and you've got to show up. There's some great opportunities for you that you don't want to miss, because that's how you actually kickstart the year, is getting things going. So when you're sorting out these exit tickets, you're going to want to look at those 3 areas that we talked about before. You've got the runners, who are your top 20% that you're going to focus on, and you're going to put them in a pile. Now, don't get discouraged if there's only 2 or 3 of them. I promise you 2 or 3 make huge, huge waves. So start with the ones you've got, right? The pragmatists, they're the ones who are kind of in the middle of that 1 to 5 range. They're like, I'm a little busy. I don't know if I need this. They're just kind of meh. They're going to wait around for somebody else. But the skeptics, they're the ones who probably circled, no, I'm not interested. And they're going to be probably staying in that camp for a while. Don't worry about them. They'll come around. Focus on your runners and focus on making an impact where you can find a great connection with teachers. The next thing you want to do is start showing up in places where those teachers are, especially your runners. Now, I wish we all had a workroom that looks this awesome, but if you can find them in the workroom or at the carpool line or at lunch or wherever in the hallway, you can catch them. Go pop into their classroom when you know that they have planning and ask, hey, is now a good time to chat? Just show up and start chatting with them. It's all about building relationships at this point. Ask them how their weekend was. Ask them what they did. Get your relationship going and start connecting with those runners. And then you want to try to use that exit data for all the teachers and start following up. They all wrote something that they want to do differently at the beginning of the year. And you get to capitalize on that by knowing, hey, these are the things that every teacher said they want to work on. Even if it's just a small thing, you can follow up with them and say, hey, I saw that you wrote that on your ticket. I would love to help you with that. And it's an open door. So the great news is that at the end of this presentation, you have kicked open your doors. You can now say, I am open, come on in. And you've got teachers who are going to be ready and waiting to work with you. But then also you have ways that you can go and engage with teachers in really practical, meaningful ways from that exit data. So all you really have to do is just those 3 keys to get your coaching kick started. First thing is know your audience and know your top 20% who you're aiming for. Then all you have to do is create an experience where teachers can experience coaching, and then take that exit data and run with it, and you're off and running. And I know you're excited about that. Also, I just want you to know I have such a heart for new coaches. If you are a new coach, I want you to come and join our community over on Facebook. We're encouraging each other and really supporting each other. One of the things that's really hard to understand as a new coach is that all of a sudden you're looking around and you're not a teacher anymore, but you're not really an administrator, and you find yourself in this kind of weird middle no man's land, and you're not really sure who your people are. And so we want to be your people over in the New to Coaching Facebook group. And I really want you to come over and join us there so that you can connect with us. We've done a book study and we're about to start a new one. So I want to make sure you join so that you can find out all the information about the book study. You should have a link below about the book study. And then also in the Facebook group, there'll be more information. But we're going to dive into these 2 books by Michael Bungay Stanier, The Coaching Habit and The Advice Trap, because they are really great for learning and understanding coaching and how you can sit back and be a little more coach-like in every conversation. So the book study starts soon, so just make sure you click that link and get signed up. The other thing is I want you to connect with me. I want us to keep talking about this. I want to help you build your presentation. Let me know what I can do to help you. So please reach out. You can DM me on Instagram. You can send me a message on Twitter, or if you have Voxer, even if you don't have Voxer, you should get it. It's a cool walkie-talkie app where we can send voice messages. So download Voxer and find me at ALCP, and then we can chat together, and that would be awesome. So I cannot wait to keep talking to you about this. And I'm so glad you joined us for the Simply Coaching Summit today. And I'm looking forward to continuing to connect with you. I will see you soon, friends. Talk to you soon.